Good morning. My name is Mindy Gales, and I'm the youth advisor here at UUCA, and my pronouns are she, her. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta, where we strive to create a beloved community acting together with compassion, reason, and respect, empowering us to promote a just society. Here in the CSRA, we reside on the lands of the Westo people, the Savannah Shawnee, and the Yuchi people of the Muskogee Confederacy. Today, I'm co-creating this service with UUCA youth, Frank Carl, and Desria C. Josef Patchen, our music director, the talented folks running our tech deck, and all of you. We are all shaping this moment together. Whether you're here in person or joining us virtually, we welcome and celebrate all of who you are here.
Sup guys? One of my names is M16, and I got some things to say. Gathering in the glow of this chalice, we honor the Unitarian Universalist principles that affirm the boundaries potential within each human. We reject the notions of inherent sinfulness, embracing the belief in the present joy, capability that define our human experience. As the flames dance, we reject the notion of a distant realm as the source of true happiness, affirming that happiness is found in the here and now. Diversity reigns in our pursuit of joy, rejecting any claim that there is a singular path to happiness or meaning. In the warm embrace of the light, we acknowledge that the natural desire within us to increase the happiness of others, dismissing the need for external pressures, dictates to inspire compassion in the core of our humanist worldview, as eloquently captured by Robert G. Ingersoll, reminds us the time to be happy is now, and the place to be happy is here. The way to be happy is to make others so. In this shared illumination, let the flame of this chalice be a beacon guiding us towards celebration of human potential, an appreciation for all present, and commitment to spreading joy for not just ourselves, but for all living beings in our shared journey of life. Is that it?
Would you rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 207, Earth Was Given as a Garden?
Tree of life, Good morning. I'm Josef. I'm here to talk about Mardi Gras. So if this Wednesday is Ash Wednesday, that means Tuesday is Mardi Gras, which literally means Fat Tuesday. And originally in the early Christian calendar or Catholic calendar, it was the Ash Wednesday, the 40 days of fasting of Lent before Easter, which meant prior to that, Carnivale, the season that literally means farewell to meat. And if you're in New Orleans, it begins right at Epiphany on Three Kings Day. So you don't have to stop your winter holidays. You just keep on going until Mardi Gras. It has its roots in pagan celebrations such as Saturnalia, Lupercalia, where there were processions and parades and dancing and revelry and dressing up for grown-ups too. Some of you know I like to play dress up. Mardi Gras is a time of the senses, of enjoying good food, of listening to music, of dancing and enjoying life as we have it. And if we look at the winter calendar in a practical sense, if you are relying on what you have in your area, you can't just head down to the grocery store and get fresh food. You might be wanting to eat up all your supplies of meat before they went bad. So this was the time of picking out on whatever you had, enjoying, and then you were giving things up for Lent. And Mardi Gras, especially in New Orleans, because it is easier to do parades when it's a little warmer. It has become a big celebration, and throughout many, many cultures, Mardi Gras is very important, and a lot of pagans like the Dionysian aspects as well. And it's a time of letting go, of letting your societal mask drop. It's a time of equality where everyone can come and celebrate the joy of life, which is, in certain religious cultures, has not always been honored. Mardi Gras is that time to celebrate. So we're going to have our own celebration and honor some of the colors of Mardi Gras are purple, green, and gold. Purple representing justice, green for faith, and gold for power. So the three of them become a balance of power, respect for others, compassion, and all of our social justice values. So we're going to begin. I'm going to invite all the young people to come up. We're going to pass out some beads, and then we're going to make some noise. So come on up. Take a few beads for yourself, and then carry them around. Make sure you take some to the choir. Pass them around. Get a few beads. And we just have to make sure they don't label tangle a little bit. If they do that, just go ahead, and we're not doing the drums yet. I should give everybody their beads, and if you got a bunch, those who got a lot of beads, pass them on to the kids who maybe didn't get some yet. We had some huge strands of them. We could have been enough for everybody to have a couple. Of course, in the traditional parades, they're throwing beads at the crowd, but we're being a little more civilized indoors. Everybody got some beads, or at least one string?
Raise your hand if you need one.
Anybody still need beads? Or the kids, if there's extra beads, you can put some on yourself. And now we're going to, sit down yet, we're not done. We have our parade, so if you would like to get yourself a noisemaker, we're just going to follow me.
At this time, we invite you to take a deep breath, relax, and take a break from the week. Please ground yourselves and We offer these words by Alice Roberts, scientist and humanist. You're not meant to be here. Your existence was not preordained. You're not part of some supernatural plan for the universe. Your very existence is unlikely, with so many chance events along the way. You're lucky to have this life. You can give it meaning. The meaning of life is not created by the promise of something after death. It's created by us, right now. Now we reflect in silence.
Each month, we share 100% of the offering we receive on the second Sunday with another nonprofit or program. To align our actions with our weekly Indigenous Land Acknowledgement, our second Sunday recipient of the next hold that thought. Of the next 3 months will be the UUCA Language Project. The mission of the UUCA Language Project is to keep alive the rich heritage of the UUCA people by creating new young speakers of the unique UUCA language through the breath-to-breath immersion method with master speakers and children. Would you please give generously to support the continued survival of the UUCA culture? Would the ushers please come forward? generosity. Part of my calling as the youth advisor at UUCA is to introduce our kids to new people, new experiences, new concepts, and to help them make those connections meaningful in their day-to-day lives. As part of their faith formation this year, the youth have been doing a study of humanism. Frank Carl, the author of today's play, took the time to discuss with our youth what it means to him to be a humanist and a UU, and how they are connected. He has also generously given us permission for our youth to adapt his play. This new kid-generated take will be presented later this spring as part of the youth faith formation journey. So in honor of Charles Darwin's birthday tomorrow, and humanists everywhere, we are proud to present A Current Trial of Darwin, a play in one act, written by our own very, very own Frank Carl.
I wrote, but I don't have it memorized. Oh, I need the distance very voice.
You do.
I need to go back here.
Oh, me too.
All rise. The High Court of the Sovereign Theocracy of Georgia Lina is in session. The Honorable Judge Desiree C. presiding.
Be seated. Charles Robert Darwin,
Yes, Your Honor.
you are charged posthumously with crimes against the sovereign theocracy of Georgia Lina, to include blasphemy, atavism, moral depravity, aggression, eugenics, and fabrication. How do you plead?
Not guilty on all counts, Your Honor.
Ms. Prosecutor, is the sovereign theocracy of Georgia Lina prepared to present the charges?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution is prepared.
The jury has been properly impaneled. Proceed.
On the charge of blasphemy, the theocracy accuses the defendant of reckless disregard for the inspired word of God, as given to us in the book of Genesis. Chapter 1, specifying that all of the species were created in their present forms. Mr. Darwin, in your book on the origin of species, do you or do you not claim that all species are descended from one or a few common ancestors?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Mr. Darwin, don't you think that your claim flies in the face of the inspired word of God?
I have no desire to offend those who would accept the book of Genesis as a true description of the beginnings. But in my book on the origin of species, I am simply interpreting the observations that I have made over many years and many miles. And since I am being tried posthumously, I might also claim that rather considerable evidence for my theory has been accumulated by many scientists since my passing. But alas, I cannot claim that none of my successors would have no ill will toward those who would accept a literal interpretation of the book of Genesis.
Then you admit to blasphemy.
I profess no ill will toward the book of Genesis or toward those who might adhere to its description of the origins of life.
You bring up your successors who support your theory of the origin of species by variation and natural selection. Do you then confess to leadership of a group of infidels and blasphemers who have ignored the evidence of creation science, which supports the intelligent design of life, and that you favor the contrived data purporting to support your theory that has become known as the theory of evolution?
I claim no leadership. I can claim only what I myself have observed and how I have interpreted those observations. Whether or not scientists from succeeding generations are influenced by my observations and interpretations is a decision that they have to make. But I must say that I am pleased that the scientists of the future have treated me so well.
Then you admit that you have conspired with the future against the evidence presented by creation science.
I admit only that my hypothesis was based on current evidence in my lifetime. Apparently, my hypothesis turned into a theory as attempts to prove it false failed. As the evidence mounted supporting the theory, it became accepted as a fact by the scientific community. I am pleased by that development. I can only hope that my theory will be accepted by the general population.
Then you admit that you wish to convince the public that your theory is correct and that the account of creation of the plants and animals as explained in Genesis is factually inaccurate?
Well, yes, but I am assuming that the writers of Genesis did not have access to the information that I have access to.
Then you admit that you are contesting the word of God as written in the book of Genesis.
Well, I guess that I am contesting that the book of Genesis is the word of God.
That's enough on blasphemy. Move on to the charge of atavism.
On the charge of atavism, the theocracy accuses the defendant of lowering the status of man to that of beast of the wild. Mr. Darwin, do you or do you not admit that in your book, The Descent of Man, you have claimed that the human species is descended from monkeys?
Well, not exactly.
And doesn't that conjecture lead inevitably to the conclusion that the noble human should act like the lowly monkey?
To answer the first question, I should say that humans and great apes apparently had a common ancestor several million years ago. But my future colleagues have shown that that common ancestor was about 5 million years ago. But humans have not descended directly from the current great apes, but from a common ancestor living 5 million years ago. Note that 5 million years is a long time, and that considerable differentiation in phenotype in both species can occur in that time. Fortunately, considerable change in behavior can also occur in 5 million years.
Phenotype? What do you mean by phenotype?
Phenotype refers to the physical appearance of the organism. Is it monkey or is it man? Unfortunately, genes and genotype were not known in my lifetime, but the difference in physical characteristics of species was known. However, these differences did not have a name until the underlying mechanism for their cause was discovered. While genotype refers to the specific genetic differences between organisms, phenotype refers to the difference in appearance or function that the genotype imparts to the organism.
So if the monkey and the human had a common ancestor, then how then do you explain the savage nature of the lesser primates? Wouldn't the human be inclined toward this savage behavior?
On this subject, let me say two things. First, the savage behavior of the great apes is overblown. And second, the savage behavior of the human is underestimated. On the first point, we need to look at the future at the research of Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall, and Beirut Geldikas to recognize that the great apes are very social animals and that their family units are not all that different from our own. These researchers have shown that violence by the great apes is employed only in defense of the family or social unit, or in competition for territorial resources, or in competition for copulation rights. It is interesting that violence in humans is employed for the same reasons and at nearly the same frequency. The difference is that humans have access to considerably more destructive power when they employ violence.
So are you saying that savagery is no less common in the human than in the monkey?
Well, yes. Savagery in the human may be more sophisticated, more organized, and more deadly than it is in the great apes, but it's still attaining an end by force.
Then are you admitting that your theory lowers the human to the violent level of the apes?
Lowers would not be a verb I would use in this case. It appears that violence is used by humans and the great apes at about the same frequency.
Ms. Prosecutor, are you ready to move on to the charge of moral depravity?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm ready for moral depravity.
Well, then carry on.
Mr. Darwin, isn't it true that the human is a superior creature to the lower animals? Isn't the human endowed by his creator with superior intellect so that he can have dominion over the land and the water and the plants and the creatures and govern them with the moral commandments of the creator? And doesn't your book, The Descent of Man, with its conclusions that the human has descended from monkeys, undermine the moral demands of the creator, leading human behavior to moral depravity?
You present a number of questions for which I am ill-prepared to answer. On your first question, I would say that the human is different from, not necessarily superior to, the other, not necessarily lower, animals. Indeed, the human evolutionary adaptation specialty seems to be intelligence, but again, I am ill-prepared to judge. Maybe the critical development that separates humans from animals is the opposable thumb, or true bipedalism. Whether its apparent intelligence suits the human to govern the land, the water, the plants, and animals remains to be determined.
So, Mr. Darwin, it appears from your answer to my last question that you are conceding that your theory of variation and natural selection does not deal with morality. Is that true?
Well, yes and no. As a direct consequence of the biological determinants of natural selection, morality does not seem to have been significantly affected. However, and now I am borrowing from the future again, given the development of considerable socialization effects on determined behavior in the last several million years in natural selection of primates, it is apparent that socialization has begun to affect the biological consequences of natural selection. Therefore, socialization appears to be a successful adaptive mechanism for natural selection, particularly in the human. Successful adaptive mechanism, particularly in the human, socialization has contributed to the success of the species, and morality is a necessary consequence of cognitive socialization. While morality is not a direct consequence of natural selection, it is an indirect consequence of natural selection via the successful adaptive mechanism of socialization. So natural selection is not only not amoral, it is necessarily moral in the context of cognitive socialization. In that context, moral depravity would have a negative effect on natural selection. Or more precisely, natural selection would tend to diminish the population of morally depraved individuals in a cognitively socialized society if moral depravity is in any way affected by genetic inheritance.
So, Mr. Darwin, you're saying that morality is an indirect product of variation and natural selection.
Can you suggest another plausible source of morality?
Well, religion, of course.
Religion, with its history of human sacrifice, wars, inquisitions, animal sacrifice, burnings, slavery, jihads, and other immoral activities, does not seem to be a plausible source. Religion's concern with morality seems to be quite recent, and religion still has significant trouble with the concept.
Mr. Darwin, are you telling the court that not only is religion not the source of moral behavior, but that moral behavior is an indirect product of what you call the process of variation and natural selection?
I think you have summarized that pretty well.
Your Honor, I believe that statement supports the charge of blasphemy.
Well, that is for the jury to decide. Move on with the charge of aggression.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Darwin, do you not agree that monkeys are aggressive towards each other?
Well, if we consult the future research of Fossey, Goodall, Gildicus, and others, we find that aggression in primate communities is dependent on context. Like other animals, primates will aggressively seek resources to support their needs for air, water, food, procreation, and socialization. If any of these resources is lacking, either to an individual primate or to a primate family or social group, the individual primate or primate group leader will act aggressively to attain the necessary resources for himself or his family or social group.
So you admit that monkeys are aggressive and that they could not be the ancestors of humans?
Well, I am admitting that monkeys, like all other mammalian species, including humans, will act aggressively when the circumstances dictate, but not necessarily more frequently than humans. But I object to your insinuation that my hypothesis suggests that humans have descended from monkeys. My hypothesis suggests that humans and the current great apes are descended from a common ancestor. And chimpanzees are our closest living species. And they lived about 5 million years ago. And molecular biology, a development of science in the future, has shown that the genetic material of chimpanzees is nearly 99% identical to our own.
So you're saying that humans and chimpanzees are equivalent creatures?
What I'm saying is that humans and chimpanzees are close relatives on the phylogenetic scale, and that they had a common ancestor relatively recently in geologic time.
Mr. Darwin, you refer to the geologic time frames and ancestors that lived about 5 million years ago. Are you challenging the calculations of creation science, indicating that the world is about 6,000 years old?
In my time, we were sure that the Earth was older than 6,000 years, but we were not sure how old. Fortunately, future science has shown that the Earth is at least 4 billion years old.
Your Honor, it appears to me that Mr. Darwin's last statement is clearly blasphemy, and considering that the Bible shows that the earth is about 6,000 years old.
And once again, that judgment is for the jury to decide. Please continue with your additional counts.
Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Darwin, isn't it true that your theory of evolution, as your theory has come to be called, supports the elimination of those individuals who have inherited less than optimum set of characteristics?
I am not sure what you mean by elimination.
Doesn't your theory suggest that only the most fit will survive, and that we could save ourselves considerable time and resource if we simply eliminate those individuals that do not make the grade?
I am still not sure what you mean by eliminate, and I am puzzled by your phrase, do not make the grade.
I was trying to be more delicate, but, putting it bluntly, doesn't your theory promote the killing of individuals who are significantly different from the norm in order to promote the health and proliferation of the dominant human phenotype?
Thank you for that clarification. Fortunately, my theory suggests that just the opposite. My theory suggests that if we should not interfere with the process of variance and natural selection will select those individuals best suited to the current environment for an advantage in reproduction and therefore an advantage in genetic proliferation. The process is slow and deliberate, and any interference by us in any given generation will only bias the process and decrease the chances of our species to improve.
Mr. Darwin, are you saying that we should not attempt to promote the survival and proliferation of the human population by eliminating the less fit from our genetic pool?
I am saying that it is unlikely at any given time that we can second guess Mother Nature. And by eliminating those who are different, we may be eliminating the next major advance in the evolutionary process.
So, Mr. Darwin, are you telling me that your theory does not promote the elimination of the genetically disadvantaged in our society?
What my hypothesis proposes is that those individuals of any species, including humans, best adapted to the current environment will produce the most offspring and thus over time will be most represented in the population. My hypothesis does not propose any active involvement by our species in the process. Indeed, any active involvement on our part may be counterproductive.
Your Honor, the prosecution will concede that Mr. Darwin has not promoted the crime of eugenics, but the prosecution will now pursue the charge of fabrication.
All right, proceed.
Mr. Darwin, I assume that you are aware that fabrication of historical events is a crime in the theocracy of Georgia Lina?
Well, no. Having come from the past, I was not aware that fabrication is a crime in this area of the globe at this point in time.
Georgia Lina takes a dim view of variations from the Bible truth, from the biblical truth, and you should note that your hypothesis is at variance with the biblical truth. Can you reconcile your hypothesis with the true biblical narrative?
If you can tell me what the true biblical narrative is, maybe I can reconcile my hypothesis with that narrative. But I am confused about what the biblical narrative actually is. Can you give me specifics? Who created what? When? What constitutes a species? Why are some species genetically more similar to each other than they are to other species? Why do bacteria have nearly 70% of the genetic component of humans? What mechanisms in the genetic development of the human turn off the development of the tail for which the genetic information is available? You know, the science question.
What is this science? The truth has been revealed to us in the biblical word of God. Have you no respect for the word?
I would like to support respect for the word, but I see no evidence to support that concept.
Then you admit to fabrication in opposition to the word of God?
I admit only to following the evidence to an honest conclusion. If that means opposing the word of God, then so be it.
On that blasphemous note, the theocracy of Georgia Lina rests its case against Charles Robert Darwin for the crimes of blasphemy, atavism, moral depravity, aggression, and fabrication.
All right, well, the jury, you guys have your evidence. I remand the case to you guys for deliberation. And deliberation will occur in the common room from 12:30 to 1. Our closing hymn is Boat of Blue Water, Big Boat of Blue Water.
prepared to end today's worship. I would like to leave you the words with the poem, The Basket Woven, by Ma Teresa Gustido Gallardo. May we respond better to risks and dangers with a beloved community. Who can be counted on as a woven basket that encompasses the gift for protection, for honor, for ceremony, and for expressions of interconnectedness. May we prevail in our intentions to make a gift to the world, to make the next generations of beings living and non-living that help it all come together for good. Because of you, because of us, we are blessed. Be. Thank you.